Alright, Part 1201, Railroad Companies, Surface Transportation Board, Chapter 10, Part 1201, Instruction Property, Part 2. 2-1 items to be charged through the railroad equipment with the property of the township is to be charged with the cost of the purchasing land with the cost of the purchase of the construction building facilities and equipment the cost of the addition of the betterment of the property made with the amount of the cash dispersed the fair value with the other assets of the distributed of the other present value of the amount to be made pay the fair market value of the resources to give up the assets serve the items for the tackle or equity not clearly with the determinable with the cost made with the determinant of the fair market value of the resource acquired of the carrier should prepare to furnish the board with the particulars as the method of determining cash value with the consideration is other than monetary with the amount with the liability incurred with the supplement with the normal course of business which are due with the customary trade with the term that not exceeding approximately 1 year with the shall record with the maturity of the value of the acquisition date with the is the data type of the place passive of the carrier. The cost of the railroad and the equipment for the purchase of the plan involving other deferred payments of debt for the capital leave that will be recorded with the discount of the present value with the payment executory costs for the insurance, the maintenance tax for the interest rate with the the discount payments should be prevailing market with the first for similar debt instrument the issue with a similar credit rating with an event with the rate U with the valuation purpose with the normally leave for the equal the rate with the carrier with the obtain with the financing similar nature from other sources of the day with the other transact with the carrier incremental borrowing rate with the case of the capital leave when practically the assertion of the implicity rate computed with the lesser of the rate with the less than the carrier incremental borrowing with the carrier should use the implicated rate acquisition date with the capital leave with the date with the lease of the agreement signed with the property coverage for the lease that has yet been constructed that has been not been accorded or lesser of the date with the lease of the agreement and the commitment to sign with the acquisition data shall be the date with the property or the construction complete with the date with the property not yet acquired by the leaser. See the instructions 220. With the actual incurred with the interest is to add with the cost of the road and equivalent deemed the qualifying asset during the period of time required to get them time ready for the intended use of the acquisition period qualifying asset for the either constructed otherwise produced the carrier's own use of the asset of the constructor produced by the carrier by other added positive the progress for the payments that have been made to the asset of the intent of the sales leave the constructed otherwise produced the discrete can project the project for the amount of the interest to be capitalized requalifying the qualifying asset that should be based on the average amount of the accumulated expense for the asset during acquisition period the rate used the specific new borrowings associated with qualifying asset for the average accumulated expense for the asset for the amount of the specific new borrowings associated with the asset for the rate of the apply with the stuff of the asset shift the weight average of the rates applicable to the other borrower for the enterprise the total amount of the interest cost of the capital in the account period that shall not exceed the total amount of the interest costs incurred by the enterprise during the period suitable record that shall be maintained showing the expenditures during the year of the original road the equipment of the road extension for the merger purchase of the existing line with the reorganization addition with the betterment and with the credit for the property retirement when the carrier exchange for the end the equipment of the other road or the equipment of no consideration involved with the road equipment they receive that should be recorded with the ledger value of the road equipment that relinquish the carrier receive the monetary consideration exchange with the carrier should reorganize recognize the gain of the exchange the extent of the consideration of the rate received that exceed the proportional share of the record cost of the road of the equipment that was surrendered for the proportion of the cost of applicable the realized amount should be based on the ratio of monetary consideration total consideration received monetary consideration plus the estimated fair value of the road equipment that received if and more clearly evident the fair value of the road equipment that transferred with the carrier and pay for the monetary consideration exchange that shall not recognize any change the gain of the transaction shall be recorded with the road of the equipment that received the amount with the monetary consideration plus the paid plus for the record cost of the road equipment that was surrendered for the loss to indicate with the terms of the exchange the transaction carrier should reorganize the entire loss of the exchange the material gains of the loss of the exchange of the shall include with the account of the 519 miscellaneous income with the 551 miscellaneous income charge of the appropriate material amount should be recorded in accordance with the instruction 1-2D. All right, 2-2, minimum rate rule applicable to the additional property exemption for the rules. Instruction 2-1, the when the cost of the acquisition unit with the road property addition with existing the road property other than the land with the track with less than 5,000 shift for the charge of the operating with the expense for the amount with the round of the nearest 100 will be adjusted to the June producer price index for the commodity with the aggregated adjustment with the C is $500 or more. The revisions will be published in the Federal Register be effective the January 1st of the following year. The carrier shall not pay or so for the expenditure of the general of the beginning of the account with the size of the expenditures within the minimum amount with the amount less than the current minimum capitalization level of the railroad as a whole fully individual property account with the may be adopted the purpose of the rule with the provide with the carrier first notify the board amount with it is it proposed to adopt thereafter make no changes amount unless the authorized by the board amount adopted shall be adhere to the reporting property chain of the valuation of property purpose. All right, 2-3. Land account for the provider for the cost of land used for the transportation operation. Also, use the land used for the other transportation operation. Land used for retired transportation operation. The retained with the care of the original cost of the estimated if it's not known. So, by the transfer of the account prescribed the property used for the other transportation operation. Contemplate with an irregular parallel land acquired with a connection with the acquisition right of way with which have no value. Commercial property shall be transferred either the purpose of making the right of way with the boundaries or run more or less regular for the purpose of eliminating transportation property account with the cost of the unoccupied land between the tracks and over the terminals, which any of the land cost is included with the accounts of the is sold. Otherwise, retired alleged value shall be credited with the poor property investment account with the profit or loss of the sale of the loss of the retirement land shall be included with the account prescribed for such accounts. 2-4. Structure of the account of the provided with the cost of the shovel class of the building of the facilitated and fixture of the permanently attached through the made with their part of the air over the building. Other structure that you've held primarily with the transportation operation. Integral part of the carrier of the transportation plan with the part is due to be held with the commercial for the purpose of the rentals of the use of the other transportation operation. The carrier of the entire cost of the building. Other structure is includable in the account of the transportation property when building other structures. You've held with the primary of the commercial purpose for the use of the other transportation operating with the carrier of the entire cost of the building. Structure includable with account 737 of the property of the other carrier operation. Reclassification property of the primary classification of the transportation other than transportation property is either the case of maybe the other classification not required, where changes are of temporary nature for the short of the period of time they count the cost of the cost of the maintenance taxes, the operating of the cost, the revenues, the rentals shall be consistent with the classification of the building and the other structure. 2-5. The equipment the account for the provided with the shovel class for the equipment that serves the locomotive passenger train with the freight train car for the highway with the revenue with the equipment, the work equipment, the floating equipment, the necessary for the improvement of the future fixture for the repairs of the equipment, the service included the cost of the inspection, setting up the trying out of the transportation over the line, foreign lines, and also the cost of addition, betterment for the improvement, the applying for the parts of the improvements of the retired equipment that may have the is held with the being torn down with the estimate of their value of the salvage therefore shall be included this account 741 other assets as held recorded except the estimated scrap value of the retired equipment held to save the sale over the ordinary cost of the business on which of the sale of the realization perceived that 1 year is assured to include with account 713 other current assets. 2-6. The components of the construction cover the cost of construction property with includable with the property account sale include with the direction and other costs that described there here under. All right, cost of labor. This includes the amount paid with the labor to extend with the carrier's own the employee with include the cost of labor to expend with the preliminary work with the sink test hole for the making the sound with the tunnel for the grading of the building, the other structure the cost of labor to expend with the laying of the tacking over the truck for the temporary use of the construction ex office with the cost of labor to expended only with the provide with the protection of the traffic during the progressive additional betterment work over the cost of labor to show off the include with the accounting of this company for the expenditure for the associated fringe benefits for the vacation, holiday pay with the health, welfare group, the insurance for the pension for the retirement plans, payroll, unemployment, insurance for the office expense for the traveling, other personal expenses for the employee one born with the care shall be consideration part of the cost of labor to show off the cost of fidelity bonds of the employer's liability premiums when the officer for the employee for the expressly assigned with the construction work with the pay with the traveling incidental expenses while the engaged will include the cost of the work with the no change for the made against the road equipment account for the pay of the officer's employers merely renders over the incidental with the connection for the expense for the addition betterment through the traveling incidental expense incurred such for the officer's employee solely with the account of such work shall be included with the account with which for the cost of the work is chargeable. B. Cost of the materials of the super supply with include the purchase of the price of the materials supply with include the small tool for the point of free delivery plus for the cost of the inspection loading of the assumed with the carrier the suitable with the proportion of the store of the expense of the also sales exercise of the tax of the material supply with except for the otherwise provided with the tax account 712 the material the supply of the calculating cost of the materials used for the property allowance shall be made value unused portion for the cutting of the tunnels the borings such for the value of the material to recover the temporary truck of the scaffolding for dams of the temporary construction used the construction for the value of the small tools recover the use of the other purposes. See for the cost of the work train service for the include the amount of the plate for the rent with the maintenance of the equipment you for the cost of labor the engine trainman the trainman with the engine houseman include the wage for the engine crew of the train crews held in the readiness of stuff for the cost and full of fuel for the otherwise supply with the consumer the next for the operation of the work train with the shall include the cost of the maintained carrier's own equipment the use for the construction for the amount of the representation construction of the rent and return upon the investment owned equipment that should not be included with this part of the cost of the work train service. D. Cost of special machine service with include the cost of labor to expend with the material supply with the consumer the maintenance operating power shovel scraper the rail unloaders ballast unloaders pile drivers dredges ditchers, weed burners, other labor saving machine that also rent paid with the machine with the cost of transportation. This includes the amounts paid with the other company with the individual transportation man with the material supply with the machine outfits with the applying with the tools connection with the construction freight charge with the paid on the foreign line with the transportation construction material with the care line should be included with the practical as pair of the cost of the material. Cost of the contract. This includes the amount paid for the work performed under the contract of the company for the form of the firms and individuals, the cost of the incentive of the award of the contract, cost of the protection of the casualty, the include the expense for the protection against the fire, service payment, the discovery, the extinguishment of the fire, for the cost of detection, prosecuting the incinerators, the witness fee for the relation thereto, the amount of the pay for the municipal for their corporation, the other fire protection analogous items of the expenditure incurred directly in the connection with the construction of the work. Alright, H, cost of injury, the damage of the expenditure of the account of the injury, the personal damage of the property incurred directly for the result of the construction project shall be included with the cost of the work with the connection with the injury, the damage of the curve, they also include the proportion of the premium they pay with the insurance of the property for the applicable period prior to completion coming with the service of the property, insure the insurance of the recovery of the account compensation, part of the reinsurance of the person, incentive of the construction shall be credited with the account with the compensation charge of the insurance recovered on the account of the damage of the property, incentive of the construction shall be credited with the account with the chargeable of the expenditure of the necessary for restoring the damage of the property, the cost of the injury, the damage of the incentive, the removal of the old structure, the parts of the shall be charged with the operating expense, the except the such of the cost of the connection with the removal of the old structure, which are encumbrance on the newly acquired lands, and shall be included with the account 2 and lands for transportation purposes, and 3 grading with its property. I, cost of the privilege includes the compensation temporary of the privileges, even the public property, tree with the connection with the construction of the property of the carrier. J. The material excavated. This cost of the disposing of the material excavated for the connection with the construction shall be considered as part of the cost of the work, except for the stuff for the materials. Even the following cost of the removal of the dumping shall be the equitable portion between the work and connection with the removal of the curve of the work connection with which the material is used. K. Interest cost of the instruction 2.1c. 2.7. Addition with the retirement of the property, generally accounting with additional retirements of the replacement of the road equipment of the property with the land, use the transportation operations of the property chain with the can be considered within consisting units of the property 2 other than units of property prescribed in instruction 2.19 with the track property change with the distinguishing units of the property is approved by the commission. The cost of the removal of the retired property depreciable waterborne, when born with the care of it shall be charged for the property of the account 11.13.39 personal salary wages which struck for the other dismantling retired property 11.23.39 personal salary wages equipment other equipment dismantling retired property other appropriate accounts including sub activities 11 and 12. Equatable portion of the balance property is accountable in 76. Interest during construction 80 other element investment applicable to the retired property with the clearly with the accounting concurrently with the retirement accounting unless provided with the otherwise interest cost that will be capitalized in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. Alright, when retired property is held and not removed with the estimated value of the shelf is therefore the shall be concluded in 741 for the other asset until the shelf is recovered the shelf is estimated scrap value of the retired property with the help of the sale of the ordinary course of the business within which the sale of the realization received with 1 year assure with the includable account 713 other current accounts the asset for the account with the track addition of the retirements without replacement shall be gathered the instruction 210 2.8 additional retirement of the unit of the property within the unit of the road of the equipment the property is added to the plan with the cost thereof shall be included with the appropriate primary of the account of the unit of the property if the retired without replacement with their cost without written shall be written out with the property account at the time of the retirement when the unit of the road of the equipment the property with the minor type of the item is placed classified depreciable include the account of the prescribed the depreciable property with the retirement surface shall be charged with the 735 accumulated depreciation road and equipment property. The road property other than the minor constituting repair with the classified as for the depreciable property retired with the cost there shall be declared properly with the account with the surface value that shall be charged to the account 6130.99 general the expense of the way is structured other than the retirement retirement requires board approval the carrier shall clear with the cost of the property account the effective date of the abandonment subject activities 11.12 that is apply. When the property included the depreciable account that exclude with the depreciation base with the retired with the surface value with the include with the engineering expenditure that is assignable with the retired property with the include with the depreciation base shall be considered charged for the operating expense 2.9. Addition with the retirement other than units of the property when an added the road equipment of the property other than the complete unit is added to the plan with the addition with the not replacement of the cost thereof shall be the account with the same areas of the additional complete unit with the property subject to the minimum rule of the practicable applicable to the rule of road property C with the instruction 2.2 with the item of the property with the complete unit minor item of the replace with the independent with the complete unit with the which is part of the cost of the replacement and retrieve with it is the mate with the charge of the operating expense if the replacement constitutes with the improvement account for the replacement should be accounted for the rebuilding expenditure under the instruction. When second-hand property required for the physical condition for the necessary for the rehabilitate property to bring up the standard of the required for the care of the cost of the rehabilitation shall include the appropriate account with the property 2.10 in addition with the retirements of the track when the track to the component of the add with the plan with the cost shall be included with the track primary account with the track component to replace that for the part of the track replacement program the placement cost shall be accounted for the addition with the track with the property account cost of the track component that shall be retired with or without replacement shall be written out of the track property account at the time of the retirement when the track is retired with the derivative value less than the net value net salvage shall be charged with the account 735 accumulated depreciation of road equipment and property. All repairs of the track shall be the account of the operating expense of the track investment written out with the account of the original cost of the estimated standard of the average cost of the density of the category of the material reused shall be put with the investment and recovered cost of the when reused include the appropriate density of the category average cost of the investment pool. Alright, 211. The expense of the connection with additional the betterment of the cost of the removal of the old material equipment from the building of the bridge is waived with the track for the other fixed improvements shall be charged for the appropriate operating expense of the account such as the charges that include the cost of removing the old foundation, filing old excavation, restoring with the addition of the ground with additional betterment work, maintaining and protecting of the traffic during the process of the addition of the betterment work, with including the cost of the construction, maintaining and removing the temporary traffic required for the maintaining traffic during the progress of the work. 212. Units of the property rebuilt with converted with the rebuilding expenditure of the carrier that shall be covered with the following with the provisions determined the act counting with the depreciable road of the equipment of the property with the rebuilding expenditure of the rebuilding expenditure of the actually incurred with the substantial extent of the service life of the substantial incurred with the utility depreciable road equipment of the property with the rebuilding expenditure shall be managed with the nature of the relative of the current replacement cost of the similar new with the unit of the railroad equipment of the property with the expense of the resulting delay of the maintenance of the repair shall not be considered for the determining material of the phase of the extent of the service life means extend the life of the property until it has passed its estimated life. Service life of the term and increase the utility means of the road and equip the property have become more useful, more efficient, and more durable, and has greater capacity to rebuild the covered with the road property with the shall be accounted for an additional with the appropriate property account with the old unit of the account with the retired service of the appropriate the property with the accounts should be compromised composed of the one not compromised but composed of the cost of the estimated necessary less fair of the allowance of the depreciation salvageable value, whichever the lower of the part reuse the cost of labor to expend with the rebuilding of the conversion of the process. 3. The costs of the additional materials applied for any of their expense for the incurred directly within the rebuilding of the version. In no case, the total amount charged of the property accounts for these units exceed the current replacement of the cost of similar new units that would be used for the same purpose that we unit that road property equipment if the transfer of one class of services to another without physical conversion unit that should be accounted for the retire of the original account of the B record of the pre-investment of the account is appropriate with the new class of service. 5. If the necessary for the repair of the second hand with the reuse of the parts and the remaining of the rebuild of the repair of the cost by the adding of the value assigned with the determining and the relay of the cost of the capital of the estimating dismantling cost should include the operating expenses. B. Repair expense, the expense of the pertaining to the road equipment of the property with the representing the normal delayed repair of the maintenance shall be the expense of the year of the incur of the file and store of the carrier shall be keep the record of each of the rebuilding program readily available. The record should be provided the representative of the board when required. The retention period should be also required with the Title 49 CFR 1220 preservation of records. Alright, 213, changes in line with the road of relocation of the yard of track. The changes are made in line with the road for purpose of the reducing curve of the grades to eliminate the bridges, tunnels, tracks, the installation, centralized traffic control system, the physical feature of the part of the line change for the job of the conserved property with the retired with the large ledger value of the credit with the property count with the new line railroad, include the land of grading ballast for the track element for the other transportation facilities serving the railroads for the consideration accounts of the cost of the charge of the property count with the cost of the tax change if it does not involve the existing road bed shall be charged with the operating expense even through the track of the dismantle with the process of the resulting track extension reduction shall be the account with the additional retirements of the as appropriate. The cost of the shifting of the rearranging tracks of the yard shall be charged with the operating expense even though the tracks may be dismantled with the process of the resulting increase of the decrease for the grading the balance for the track length for the shall be account with addition retirements appropriate track length and hold with the parts of the yard determined with no longer permanently with the ledger value of the sum of the tracks eliminated with the property account if the yard track for the facility or for the construction in another location take place in the retired such for the track facility should be accounted for the addition of thereof that include with the property account. 214 track connections when the accounting with the carrier the bear for the construction with the connection with the track situation on the property with another carrier with the acquire with the salvage right for the track with the cost of the track construction should be charged with the count. 731 road equipment the property when carriers 1 share the cost of the construction in connection with the track with the portion situated each of the carriers right away. 2 the owner obtain the salvage right for the track with the segment located with the respective property construction born with each of the carriers shall be charged with the account. 731 road equipment and property the cost of the construction track connection right away with another carrier with the acquired for the ownership of the salvage right for the track of the in charge for the carrier bearing such as the cost of 37 account 371100 for the purchase of the service joint facility the debit the way the truction running 371200 purchase of the joint facility the debit the way of the structure switching the own carrier with the shall charge for the amount of the construction cost of the account 731 road equipment the property with the credit of the accounts 381100 the purchase of the joint facility the credit way of the structure running of the 381200 purchase of the joint facility credit way structure switching material amount such that the cost shall be referred to the board consideration of the decision. Alright, the cost of the construction side of the track under the deposit of the fund refund agreement that shall be charged with the count number 31 or equipment that property the deposit shall be charged within 782 with the other liabilities deposit amount of the refund with the during the agreement the period shall be charged with the 782 other count 782 with the other liabilities upon termination of the agreement the amount of the refund and deposit of it shall be credited with the applicable primary property of the account with the equatable basis. 215 merger consolidation purchase of the railway operating in the system. When the railway portion thereof the constituting operating unit of the system acquired with the business combination of the business combination shall be recorded in account with the manner stated or here under. B. The purchase of the amount includable the amount of the 731 road equipment and property shall be the case of the day of the acquisition and purchase of the transferred property acquired with the cost of the assignment of the property as well with the other assured assets acquired with the amount of the cost consideration given them with the property of other assets acquired with other than cash included with the liability assumed with the share of the staff with the cost of the share determined at either fair value of the consideration given the fair value of the asset of the required with which of the more clearly evident with any additional liabilities shall assume the provision shall be made with such estimated liabilities if necessary when the cost of the individual unit of the class of the transitional property not specified by the agreement the cost assigned of the property portion among the appropriate with the primary accounts of the percentage relationship between the fair value of each of the class property required with the total such values. Mergers and subsidiaries, the acquisition merger of the property of subsidiaries controlled through the ownership of the major share of the voting stock with accounting with the using the acquisition of the methodology. Alright, 216, reorganization of the railway. When reorganization of the receivership that has been consummated, the acquired of the liabilities, assuming the capital of the other security issue, assuming the other consideration shall record the account of the manner stated here under the adjustment capitalization result of modification, reformation, classification, security, the pursuit of the voluntary action of the holder of security both not result of the formal reorganization following the bankruptcy or other receiving the procedure, sometimes called the quasi-reorganization of the not covered the instruction 216, the reduction of the capital stock for the other contribution capital of the stockholder should be recorded in accordance with the instruction and text of the account of the 1795 other capital. The amounts includable with the primary road equipment, the property of the account with the record with the cost of the shown with the predecessor with the company's expense of the otherwise provided with the paragraph C and the D with the instruction 216 and the remaining asset with the liability predecessor company's adjusted with the necessary with the conform of the accounting rules board together with the balance of the accumulated amortization depreciation accounts shall be recorded in an appropriate balance sheet with an amount with the record of the asset with the required with more than par with the share of the value of the nor capital stock of the stock issued with the other consideration paid and include and liabilities assumed the indifferences shall be applied with such an extent of the necessary available to provide the first with the deficiency pass accrued with the depreciation property assessed depreciable and the second the any of the estimated loss of the retirement of the branch segment of the track of other important facility indicated supporting the records of an imminent the remaining amount of the difference if any shall be applied proportionally to reduce the amount of incurable property account with accordance with paragraph B of the section 216 based on the percentage relationship between the size of the difference aggregated cost of the property shown in the precedence of the predecessor of the company's accounts. Alright, when the amount is applicable to the SS of the occurred less than par stated the value of the non-capital stock the issue of the considered pay, but they include the limiting liabilities assuming the accounting should be referred to the board with the consideration decision. Alright. We're going to see how long the tape is right now. Alright, we'll keep going. 217, construction of the project with the governmental agency, individual of the carrier practice with the debate and the amount of the includable the property account with the construction project with the care of the governmental agency, individual of the particular shall be the payment made with the carrier share with the cost of the construction process, plus the record cost of the estimated unknown of the property relinquished, direct result of the arrangement of the retire with the service less than the value, salvage of the carrier, recovered thereof of the carrier less than the depreciation, accrued with the depreciable of the property with the property of the carrier cost of the project, amount of the included the property account shall be distributed equitable among the primary account with the applicable railroad property with the construct the amount of the shall be first applied with the railroad facility includable with an accounts other than other right away with the expenditure of 39 public improvement construction, then either the remaining balance sheet with the include with the account with the 4 and 39 with the property with the no for the amount with the include with the primary account with the railroad facility inquired with the exceed with the actual cost of the construction and such the facility property account shall not include any of the cost or value of the facility load landed contributed with the paid by the government and official individuals of the property acquired with the specific contribution capital stock flow does not come under this rule. See Tax 795. Construction project within the section with the providing with the highways, the construction spillway, the drainage of the canal, with the farm, the other part of the pipeline, with the drains, the other facility, the cross the right of way, the construction overhead highway, bridge with the railway, bridge with the other public highways, with the across the stream with which provide the railway, even the operating train with the public, even the interpreted passage of the highway, river traffic installation warning, with the protect with the highway traffic, industrial side traffic, with the restriction, also with the restriction, relocation of the tracks, improvement of the facility, such as they occur with the connection with the carrying out of the flood, with the reclamation, with the other public improvement projection, with the becomes necessary with the abandonment part of the line with the railroad road relocate tracks. 218. Lease property improved with the retirement of the cost of the leases and the structure facility in addition with the betterment of the lease property for the retirement of the property cost of the which within include with the 732 the improvements of the lease property, you the accounting with the conformity with the principal, the instruction with the property owner, the leaser of the property with the retire with the play for the lease lesser of the property with the retire with the play for the leaser with the obligated to reimburse the leaser lesser of the property with the other than replacement of the leaser with the charge of the cost change of the account 732 and movement of the lease property discontinuing its appreciation of the lease of the lesser's retired property. 3. Whenever the recording final statement of the lesser was considered a joint of the amount of the accrued within this account 772 accrued liability lease property for the lesser's retired property and the respective amount of the replacement included the amount 732 improvement of the lease property 33 accrued accumulated depreciation improvement of the lease property when the leaser is obligated to reimburse the lesser currently with the termination of the lease of the property with the retired other than the replacement of the leaser shall include the amount of the obligation of the appropriate liability account with the leaser shall furnish the lesser with the information required to enable the leaser the lesser to perform necessary accounting with the leaser of the lesser shall be consistent with the contractual arrangements. Alright, 219, list of the unit property. This list of unit property establishes the purpose of the designating the unit of the property of the unit, the accounting with addition with the retirement with the replacement of the property, detailed information included with the instruction 27228 with the items of the unit and road property with the account with the subject of the minimum of the rule applicable to the addition of the property. See instruction 22 with the pertaining of the minimum rule. This list of units revived at the time may be necessary to meet the conditions carried desiring, including new account with the appropriate with the unit of the now specified therein under approval of the board. Such authorized additional list of the units of the rule applicable to the units of the rebuilt with the converted to the change of the line with the road track with involved with the counting the convenience of the property retired as set forth in instructions 212 and 213, and then it goes into accounting 3. We'll cut the tape there and start with accounting 3 grading.